Hello again. Um, so before I start talking about what I've been learning in the Bible this week, I went to church this morning, and quite a profound. I don't know. So went to church. We had a Harvest Festival, I think it's called. And afterwards, when we were leaving, my wife went ahead because she was going to walk somebody back to their house, a daughter of someone that she knew. And I was there with my two boys. Both my boys went today, and the Reverend um, came to sort of say hello. I hadn't met her before because in this church they rotate between three different reverends, and they have three different churches that they rotate around. I think they call it a tri-church or something like that. So I hadn't seen her before, and she came and spoke to me, just say hello, etc., etc. So we were just talking just for a few short minutes, and then she said to me, why have you come to church? After we told her, that we were new and had only been there a couple of times. So she said, why did you come to church? And I was filling up, just trying to tell her that, I managed to get out and say that, well, because of the death of Charlie Kirk. At which point, my eyes started to fill up, started to well up, and I couldn't actually speak anymore after that point. So I was standing there trying to form my words together. And she was very patient. She was very kind. She just stood there and waited, and I eventually got it out and said, since the death of Charlie, I had this feeling. I couldn't describe it. What it was something inside, something profound, and I felt the need, because of Charlie's strength and his faith, I felt the need to learn more about this, right? To go to church, to read the Bible. And so, I explained it to her, and it was quite a strong feeling. And, she was saying to me that maybe, could be the Holy Spirit. Sometimes that's what the Holy Spirit manifests to people, because I did explain to her that I was never religious before that point. I had no desire to go to church, read the Bible, anything like that. So that was quite profound, that I actually felt that way when I was trying to explain it to her. I thought it was just felt such a strong feeling. So yeah, so there was that. Anyway, so obviously been studying the Bible this week, and I've got all sorts of notes. And I still haven't got to the written words of God yet. I haven't got that far. I'm still reading a lot of the background stuff and history, because it is a study Bible. And so, yeah, what have I learned? So it's really about the kind of time period, really, that I'm learning about at the moment. So things like what they call the Second Temple of Judaism, which is the time between the temples when they were reconstructed and its final destruction, and the fact that sort of introduced changes into the political structure, culture, and religion of the Old Testament world. And the Second Temple appeared during the Persian Empire. And then after the Persian Empire, which controlled obviously the region of Palestine, Judea, and whatnot, the Persians were defeated by Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great brought with him what they call the Hellenistic culture, which is the Greek culture, so the Greek language, of the Greek culture, etc. And that was spread across the region. And then when Alexander died, was killed, I'm not sure what happened to him, he had four generals, or four of his generals, split his empire amongst them. And two of the generals, there was two regions, which were called, if I recall was the Ptolemaic, which I learned how to pronounce as well because it has a P in front of it, which is silent, so you don't say the P, but it's the Ptolemaic Empire, which kind of covered Egypt and Judea, Palestine, and the Seleucid Empire, which would later become the Syrian Empire, and that took control of sort of region of Syria, etc. But also Judea and Palestine. There was constant conflict between the two generals, or the two empires over that region. So constantly going back and forth, and eventually the Romans would take control of the region. I think after the Jews asked them to come in and help them, so the Romans came in and took control of the region. Yeah, up until, well, during that period, because it explains that you need to understand that during the New Testament period there was a lot of discontent with the Roman Empire, for many reasons. I think one of those reasons was that the Romans would replace I think it was called the high priest in Jerusalem, which, supposedly is, once the high priest is chosen, or I don't know exactly where the high priest would normally come from, but when they're chosen, they're supposed to remain in that position, I think, for life. But whereas the Romans would just change them at will, depending, I guess, on whether they were getting on with that person, whether it was supporting them or not. So they didn't like that, and also the tax collectors, the Roman tax collectors. I think it was thought very, very much so that they weren't just collecting taxes for Rome; they were also filling their own pockets as well, and so that was obviously causing some discontent. So eventually there was actually a revolt. It's called the First Jewish Revolt. Happened in AD 66 to 73, and during that the Romans brutally put down the Jews, and destroyed the Temple of Jerusalem, and replaced it with a temple to Zeus, I believe, or Jupiter. They're both in the same, but and that actually then begins, as I understand, or just shortly after, the third era of Judaism, or Hebrew history, which continues to this day. A couple of other interesting things that I discovered was that there were various Jewish groups during that period of the Second Temple era: the Sadducees, probably pronouncing these wrong, Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Zealots, and Essenes. I'm yet to read more about those. I think it's on the next page. I'm going to read in the Bible, actually. Also discovered what the word Gentiles mean, or Gentiles, which way you pronounce that. I'd heard that word before, but what it means is non-Jews, or from the nations that are not Israel, so outside of Israel, essentially. Also, I knew what BC meant. I knew that meant before Christ, but didn't know what AD meant. I knew it was to mark the time after the death of Jesus Christ, or the birth of Jesus Christ, right? But I didn't know it stood for Anno Domini, which is in the year of the Lord. So yeah. So I've got this notebook that I'm writing in every day, and I learn something from the Bible while I write in it, and then go back and read it the previous day, and so still learning a lot about the history. I haven't actually got into the words of God yet, but I think I know where I'm going to start when we get to it. I think I'm going to start with Luke first. As I mentioned before, there was a Bible reading plan, and that mentions reading one of the Gospels first. So I think we're going to start with Luke. So that's where we'll go, and then maybe by my next video, I've actually started reading the words of God. So we'll see. Anyway, until next time.